How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees. Pitchers and catchers have reported spring training is ever more closer, just a couple days away, and we're getting some really good news and nuggets out of camp right now already. Obviously, Nestor Cortes, the injury there was a prominent one that we discussed a couple days ago, the hamstring injury, that is. But I'm excited. This is an opportunity for some young guys to really put their names on the scene and showcase their talents. You know, we were just discussing Randy Vasquez just a second ago with Ryan, and ultimately, this is going to be a really fun spring training to see who kind of rises to the occasion and exceeds expectations for the most part. We have some really exciting stuff to talk about. First and foremost, Nestor Cortes. But before we do, Ryan, how you do today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Definitely looking at the Nestor news is a huge positive, right? I mean, not saying that I was ever too concerned, like, damn it, Nestor's like out of the picture, right? But considering the Montas news, I feel like you're a little more sensitive to starting pitching news. Anyone getting a little banged up, a little soreness, you're going to start getting concerned, especially considering, I talked about this with Chris Kirschner when he came on the show. The Yankees have a pretty high injury percentile for the rotation. Cyrus did an article for The Athletic detailing kind of how the Yankees rotation, the question marks with the Yankees, there are some in the lineup, but the big question mark is the health of the rotation. There's a wide distribution of results for innings pitched, and Frankie Montas was one of the bigger injury risks, and that one panned out negative, right? The guy's already getting shoulder surgery. So seeing Nestor throwing off the mound is great. I was telling this to you before the show. We were talking about this. I quite frankly, the Yankees just take it as carefully as possible, Nestor. I care that these guys are prepared for opening day. I care that these guys are here on opening day. And then we talk about the middle of the season. I know people already talk about load management with these pitchers, right? I know that that's a term that in the NBA is kind of like frowned upon. Pitchers, man, we're gonna have to be able to load manage, and not in like some crazy abnormal way. The same way the Yankees did it last year, right? The Yankees let JP Sears get some starts, and he pitched pretty well. Luis Gil, prior to his injury, was involved in that, and they have young guys. You mentioned Randy Vasquez. He confirmed to me he is throwing a cutter, man. He threw one last year. I think that's an important pitch for him to throw. We talk about guys with a ton of movement. Super sweeping slider. I mean, he's got 20 inches of horizontal break there, 18 inches of arm side run. So think going the other direction on a changeup. That's 38 inches of horizontal separation. Batters don't swing at pitches that have a lot of movement typically compared to pitches that don't have a lot of movement. So people tend to throw a cutter because it's closer to 0 inches of horizontal break. It's not as much of a big moving pitch, so you generate more swings. So that's something Nestor worked on. Nestor's cutter is there so you can throw it in the zone and get guys to swing. Unfortunately for batters, they tend to miss at those. So it's not a fun time for batters. You get a lot of weaker contact. So, the Yankees have kind of adopted more of a cutter-based mentality. They have a lot of really good pitchers throwing cutters. I would hope for that either to continue to take a step forward this year or just kind of keep it at the way it's been. I think cutters are a really good pitch for guys to throw for that reason. But, getting your pitching intact here is going to be key. I can't wait to get updates on what guys have been working on over the offseason. Mentioning Chris Kirschner again, he did an article on Tommy Canley over the offseason where he interviewed him, and Canley revealed he's working on a two-seam kind of sinker fastball, right? I think that's going to be a great addition to his pitch mix, right? Considering it's going to give him more contact management. So it'll be fun to see what guys have been working on all offseason, and I am chomping at the bit for spring training games, for some of that spring training data, man, and getting some guys that we haven't seen pitch at the major league level. We're going to get to see them in a more involved role in spring training. You mentioned Randy Vasquez. I think he threw like 10 pitches in spring training last year, right? With the major league team. Definitely pitched a lot more with the minor league team or like the minor league spring training camps. I want to see it, man. Jason Dominguez. I want to see these guys. I want to see what they can do. I know everyone's talking about Anthony Volpe and the winning the shortstop battle. Aaron Boone gave an interesting quote kind of talking about how Volpe, there's that possibility that if they feel like he's the best option, he'll win it. You can say it's just media talk, but I'm starting to believe that they actually feel that way. The door is still a little bit open, though Peraza looks like the favorite. Seeing how he looks, man, they also mentioned he's going to be playing positions outside of shortstop. Some guys are going to be playing some second, some third. That'll definitely be interesting, kind of see how Volpe fits best and kind of see how he fits into the equation here. He revealed Josh Donaldson's the third baseman, and that's going to be news, but end of the day, I think we're looking at this infield, we're looking at this team, and it's like there's a lot of just like, you just want to see these guys in action now.
Yes, I certainly want to see a lot of these guys in action. Anthony Volpe is, I'd say, like as you mentioned, the door is open. It's cracked open. There's a chance for him to showcase what he can do, but like as you mentioned, Peraza has the leg up, the advantage right now. But you did mention a relief pitcher who I wanted to discuss. I also want to discuss Ron Marinaccio. These guys are trending in the right direction. Luis Gil as well. So Marinaccio and Gil both coming off of injuries. Obviously, Gil's a little bit more serious with the Tommy John surgery, but some good quotes from you guys. So Brian Hoke of MLB.com said regarding Ron Marinaccio that he's scheduled to face hitters next week. He has thrown from the mound 5 times and expects to be ready for opening day. He had that shin injury late in the season last year. He's been kind of dealing with that. So really good news on the Marinaccio front and really what he can provide moving forward. He's one of our young guns. He can feature in high leverage scenarios. We love Ron. So this is a player that expectations are high. He can exceed them. Was tremendous last year over a pretty sizable sample size, so I do like him to become a pretty prominent arm in the bullpen. Now, Luis Gil, flamethrower, averaged out at 97 miles an hour last year on his fastball before going down. Did not have much of a sample size of just 4 innings, but he's got some really good stuff. He's only 24 years old, 33 innings of action to his name. This is a player who, of course, the Tommy John injury will keep him out for a couple more weeks, I would say. The exact quote from Marley Rivera of ESPN is Luis Gil has been throwing from over 100 feet for a little while, hopes to throw his first bullpen since Tommy John early in spring, but there is no date set on the schedule as of yet. So he still has a ways to go before he can feature in a regular season game, but we might be able to get him back in the midway point, which I think would be ideal because this team always seems to pick up injuries in the bullpen. Of course, you have Michael King fighting his way back. He's expected to be ready for opening day, but Gil is a really good young player who I know you're really high on as well. So he actually could end up being like just a better version of Alberto Abreu, a little bit more command, whereas Abreu has had issues in that department, but does have the flame-throwing kind of velocity that I know, Ryan, you do like, but pairing it with command is certainly a good thing. So, tell me a little bit about your expectations for Ron Marinaccio and, of course, Luis Gil, what you think he can provide this team when he does make that return from Tommy John surgery and rehabilitates and obviously is 100% and ready to go this season.
Yeah, Ron Marinaccio, I look at as this is a year for him. I wouldn't be shocked if he's one of the 3 best relievers in this bullpen next year. Not because this year, not because guys regress or anything. That regression's normal. Some guys are going to take steps back, right? You can't expect all 8 of your guys to pitch to the back of their baseball card in a positive way or take steps forward, right? Look at Jonathan Loaizaga last year. There was no indication that Jonathan Loaizaga was going to struggle as badly as he did for the first half of the year, and he still did, right? His stuff still looked great, but he just wasn't him, right? And that happens sometimes. Clay Holmes kind of just went on a little bit of a cold streak. He lost his command, and then in the postseason, he suddenly is all the way back. Relievers are weird people, man. They're a weird group. They're really hard to project. It's a really small sample size. But Ron Marinaccio has, as you mentioned, he just has ridiculous stuff. The 4-seam fastball and the changeup, the vertical separation there is unbelievable. The release point on the 4-seam fastball makes it really hard to pick up because he delivers at a lower vertical approach angle. Lower vertical approach angles tend to deceive hitters because they intend that they perceive that pitch as one that's supposed to drop a lot more. It doesn't, so it kind of catches up on them. That flat angle makes it hard to generate a good swing against. So batters are going to struggle against Ron Marinaccio to generate consistently quality contact. You can see that in the line drive rates. You can see it in the barrel rates. He's going to get a lot of strikeouts. Yes, he's going to walk guys, but end of the day, he's going to have a low ERA if things go to plan, right? I think he's nasty. I think he has some of the best stuff in this bullpen, so very excited to see him in a larger role this year. It's unfortunate he didn't make the postseason roster because of injury. It really is, because I think he would have played a big role there. And then as for Luis Gil, I mean, I think people forget how talented that dude was. That dude was really, really, really talented. I don't think that he was, I think it was a little bit, the command made it hard for you to say he was definitely going to be a starter. But as a reliever, man, as a bullpen arm, that dude can be very good. His 4-seam fastball, obviously, it's blistering. It's got great riding action. It's not just a pretty good pitch. It's a really good pitch. The slider is gross. The slider is legitimately incredible. It's hard for me to look at him and not say this dude is really, really talented. This kid can come back, and as you mentioned, you never know what injuries you're going to have. You never know when something's going to go wrong. You never know when you're going to need a spot start here or there. We saw the Yankees use Herman. Herman was out for the first half of the year, if I'm not mistaken. Then he comes back and he fills in a rotation spot. Not saying that that's what Luis Gil's going to do, but let's say the Yankees trade a reliever. Let's say that, you never know what the Yankees are going to do with the deadline. You never know how the Yankees are going to operate at the deadline. You don't know what your needs are going to be. You don't know what guys what prices you get for different guys in your bullpen. If a team's offering you, if you need to move some money around and a team's offering you a prospect for Lou Trevino, you take that deal. If it means you can open up the option to get a different guy at the deadline, like a left fielder, right? Not saying that the Yankees should be operating on a budget, but it's the Steve Cohen tax. That's not a threshold they're going to break. That's just not, right? They're not doing that right now. Maybe they do that next year, but from what we know with this team, they're not doing it this year. They're not going to do it for a left fielder at the deadline, right? Jock Peterson's awesome. If the Giants aren't good, he'll be available. Jock Peterson's not Juan Soto, right? Like you're not paying that luxury tax increases more than just the money you're getting in that deal. So Luis Gil would be someone you just slot in the back end there maybe and say, all right, bud, we lost a reliever. Let's feel you're on the 40 man already, so let's just put you in the major league bullpen, throw a couple of nice innings for us, be some long relief. And if he dazzles, man, I mean, the Yankees are really good at developing young pitchers into at least bullpen roles. Starting pitching has been a little different just because the Yankees really don't have many openings in the rotation. It feels like this is kind of the first time in a while that they're going to have an open competition for the fifth starter job. Even going into last year, I mean, did we think Domingo Germán was going to beat Nestor for that job? He got hurt. Do we think Clark Schmidt was going to be beating Nestor for that job? Hell no. So, quite frankly, the Yankees have kind of always gone through the trade market or free agency to get their starting pitching and then gone to their minor leagues for bullpen help or lineups. That should be changing over the next coming years. You mentioned Randy Vasquez. Luis Gil could be a factor in that. I don't think that Luis Gil will be a starter just because injuries and just kind of like everything that's gone on there. But as a reliever, he could be very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think as a reliever, he can make an impact. And you kind of referenced the number 5 starter thing. And I do want to mention Garrett Cole coming out and advocating pretty blatantly for Clark Schmidt, which I thought was pretty cool. He was like, Schmidt is my dog. He did say we have some other good supplementary options and that Domingo Germán has done some good stuff for the Yankees. But it was clear, like he's like, Clark Schmidt's the guy. He's my guy. What do you think about that? Because I find that to be pretty obvious that that Cole wants Schmidt to win that job. Now, Germán can be a good like mid innings, just he can eat them out of the bullpen, kind of a long inning type of relief pitcher. But Schmidt can be used in a different number of ways, whether it be as a closer, whether it be as kind of a kind of eating innings, just like Germán would. He can come in relief for an inning or two. He can do a lot of different things for this team and supplement a lot of things. But we know who has the most upside. Schmidt has the most upside. Germán has the most experience. So what do you go with here? Do you go with experience, or do you kind of stick with Cole here and say you go with upside? You go with the guy that really could actually end up being a good starting pitcher at the back end of the rotation for us for maybe the foreseeable future?
Yeah, Clark Schmidt, I've talked about his upside for a while. Clark Schmidt is someone who, quite frankly, his stuff is just really, really good, right? His slider and curveball are incredible pitches. They are elite pitches. They are top of the line. Those are 2 pitches right there that Germán's got the curveball, but that pitch isn't great about as well as Schmidt's does. Schmidt is a guy who can outstuff you with those 2. He can throw a slider in a poor location and still get a swing and a miss, which I think is important to kind of mention here. Germán can't throw a changeup over the heart of the plate and get away with it, right? That's just stuff guys can just be a little less. Not that they can be all over the place, but they could be a little less careful, a little less fine. They just have to, take a really good pitch and miss off of the middle of the zone. That's really all you have to do. His fastballs aren't great. That's been detailed before, but Germán's fastballs are also pitches that get crushed pretty frequently. So we have 2 guys here with poor fastballs. I think Schmidt still has upside to have a good sinker. He throws it pretty hard. You feel like you just have to get a little bit more run on it, or maybe it's better to command or whatever it may be. But I genuinely feel like there's more upside in his sinker than there is in Germán's. I just look at Clark Schmidt and I see a guy who, I think Germán's clearly not a bad pitcher. But if Germán's good, again, I think I've said this on the podcast before, maybe not. If Germán's good, you can trade him, sure, but you're not going to be you're not dealing him in like a Brian Reynolds package. Why would the Pirates want a guy with 1.5 years control? If Clark Schmidt is, pretty good, and you can trade him and a position player and then a couple scraps, right? For Brian Reynolds, he's good. He's been a good starting pitcher, let's say, right? And Brian Reynolds is available. They lowered the price, and he helps close the gap in price. How could you say no to that, right? That's the upside there. Severino and Montas are both free agents. Now we can argue about maybe, bringing Severino back or maybe bringing Montas back on a super cheap deal and just do it as a flyer, like when the Yankees brought in Kluber, whatever it may be. if the Yankees just want to make sure they have they have Rodon, they have Cole, they have Nestor, who are locked down for at least the next 2 years. If you want to say, you know what, we also have Schmidt, who's going to be here for the next 2 years. So you have 4 of your rotation spots. You know they're going to be here for the next 2 years. That's massive as well, right? Knowing what you have going forward is really important. This team has 2 starting pitching free agents, right? That's important, right? So Herman has a year of control of this. You don't know where he goes in a year, right? He's in arbitration. You can move him for if you need to move salary, right? Schmidt is still really cheap. He's not hitting arbitration. The way I look at things with Schmidt is that the upside, the expected, you're looking at expected value for the team going forward. Schmidt's upside is so much higher. The avenues you can take going forward are so much higher. And end of the day, your 5th starter is not the guy you throw in a postseason series. You just move Schmidt back into the bullpen come postseason time. So you're not talking about, oh man, you got to start him in the playoffs. Without the playoffs, you're not worried about that because if things go to plan, he's not starting in the postseason.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, this is a pretty deep team, but as you said kind of earlier in the episode, the starting rotation has a little bit of an injury concern problem. And it's mainly because I feel as though there are inning caps to a lot of our starters, right? Carlos Rodon pitched a career high 178 innings this past season. That's the most since maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. He had like 168 or something like that, maybe in the 160s. Of course, Luis Severino only pitched 100 innings last year. Montas is already out for the whole season. Domingo Germán only pitched 72 innings. Like, this is a team that they're going to have to supplement a lot of kind of starters in there. I wouldn't be surprised if they leverage Gleyber Torres for a starting pitcher, to be quite honest. Maybe like pair Domingo Germán and Gleyber for a starting pitcher instead of a left fielder, because it seems, I mean, look at this quote from Aaron Boone definitely concerns me about what he sees Gleyber Torres' role being this upcoming season. He said, yeah, but obviously we have a lot of infielders. I expect him to be in an everyday-ish role. Like, what does that even mean? That's so vague. If he was like 100% committed to Gleyber being an everyday player, he'd be like, yeah, Gleyber Torres is our starting second baseman. There's nothing to talk about here. That's it. Instead, he goes everyday-ish role. Like, what even does that mean? So, in my opinion, it sounds like the Yankees have some sort of ulterior motive going on with Gleyber here, whether they're going to trade and move him for another piece. What does that quote mean to you? Because to me, it definitely was a little bit sketchy, and it said to me that they're not 100% convinced he's going to be on this team long-term or even an everyday role, which he's a top 5 hitter on this team. How do you leave him out of the equation unless you're trading him?
Yeah, it feels like there's kind of that aspect of leaving the door open, right? Just kind of, not saying that, the Yankees are going to trade Gleyber tomorrow, right? I don't think that's what either of us are implying, but that there's that, like, not fully certain, not 100% sure. And I'm not saying Aaron Boone's at fault for not being 100% certain. End of the day, he's a part of the organization. He kind of knows which guys are a little bit more available on the trade market and who's not. I imagine if the quote was about ICAF, what's ICAF's role? Like, we'll figure it out as spring training goes. It'd probably be something along those lines, right? And there's a reason for that, right? I think Gleyber's on this team on opening day. I think that Gleyber gets to at least the deadline. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of different things to do with Gleyber that you could do at the deadline. If Volpe is really playing well, do you move Gleyber, right? Do you move him for more of a controllable left fielder, right? Maybe that becomes available. Who knows? Do you move Gleyber for, as you mentioned, a starting pitcher if you want to go out and get and just go all out with a really good rotation? Not that this rotation is really good, but you can just kind of like that super rotation, all-time great type stuff. But again, you'd be acquiring like your 5th starter, so it's a little bit weird. Or Gleyber Torres is still part of your team. But as you mentioned, everyday-ish role, right? Postseason, I've mentioned, DH and put Stanton left field. You can't do that every day in the regular season if Volpe's up here. So I imagine it'd be more of a rotating role. You kind of fit, he said LeMahieu's the rover. I kind of would I don't see that as like a terrible thing, but that's kind of how I would view Gleyber, where it's like you kind of just play him not every now and then, but you play him often. It's just not every day, and he's not a starter on the depth chart, which, is more of at this point kind of feels like a title and not as much of an indication or indication of your playing time. At the end of the day, the Yankees had an infield issue last year in terms of like depth, where they had too many guys and not enough people. They had too many players and not enough positions to play them. And Donaldson, LeMahieu, and Gleyber still played a bunch. So I'm convinced this team is still going to get Gleyber the playing time he needs. They just have to get creative with it. So an everyday-ish role might be that creative avenue to take in order to get these guys all comfortable in the lineup. I know people don't like Donaldson, but he's here. You have to figure out what you have with him, right? We can't say, all right, just sit on the bench and don't touch the field, right? That's unreasonable. That you're not going to carry a guy on your roster to do nothing. They're going to figure out what they have in him. They're going to play him. They're going to get him in the lineup. They want to know what they have in DJ. They want to know what they have in Gleyber. They're going to get these guys in the lineup, and we're going to have to figure out who's the best options going forward, and then make moves and make decisions based off that.
Absolutely. Well, to finish this episode up, it seems like Nestor Cortes is actually thrown off the bullpen right now, which is pretty damn impressive since he had a 2-week kind of, timetable for recovery here, but he's already pitching off the bullpen today. So, pitching out of the bullpen today. So, this is awesome. Great injury news regarding Nestor. Tommy Kahnle was also getting some action in there via Pete Caldera, I believe, had a video on Twitter, so you can go check that out. But obviously, every day, guys, we got you guys covered with all the updates and news. One place, all you got to come to is here, and we're going to get you guys all the information you need to get ready for this 2023 regular season and kind of digest all of the different position battles and stuff that's going on right now in just pitchers and catchers reporting. A lot of news coming out as we watch Anthony Volpe, as we watch Oswaldo Cabrera, as we watch Aaron Hicks. There's going to be a lot of narratives and storylines coming out, and of course, we will be here to break it down for you in the best way possible using the numbers, the analytics, and obviously our gut feeling, which I think people appreciate, just having a healthy blend of it all. So, much love for tuning into the latest Fireside Yankees episode. For more of this great stuff, make sure to like and subscribe as always for the daily content, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.